Strange Histories, Episode 2, Left on the Moon. On July 20th, 1969, at 4:17 p.m. Eastern Time, a spacecraft called Eagle touched down in the Sea of Tranquility. The world held its breath. Neil Armstrong climbed down a ladder and became the first human being to stand on another world. Everything after that went exactly as planned, until it didn't. The Apollo program was the most expensive peacetime undertaking in American history. 400,000 people, $24 billion, a decade of work pointed at a single moment. Getting to the moon was only half the plan. The lunar module, the Eagle, was built in two pieces. The bottom half was a landing platform. It stayed. The top half was a rocket, a small, fragile ascent stage designed to fire once, carry two men off the surface, and dock with the command module waiting in orbit above. It had one engine with no backup. NASA engineers had studied the failure modes. They had run the numbers. The ascent engine was considered among the most reliable components on the spacecraft. They were almost certainly right, almost. Armstrong and Aldrin had been on the surface for 2 hours and 14 minutes. They had collected samples, planted a flag, taken photographs that would define a century. Now it was time to leave. Aldrin flipped the ascent engine arming switch. Armstrong and Aldrin came home. The world celebrated and moved on. That's the history, you know. But what if? What if on that same afternoon, in the silence of the Sea of Tranquility, the switch failed? Mission control goes quiet. Not the quiet of concentration. The quiet of people who understand exactly what has just happened and have no answer for it. There are contingency plans for many things. A failed ascent engine is not among them. There is no rescue mission. There is no backup vehicle. There is no procedure in any manual on Earth for what to do next. Armstrong reports the failure in the same flat, calm voice he uses for everything. Mission control acknowledges. And then there's very little left to say. The two men have enough oxygen for approximately 7 hours. They have food and water. They are in no immediate danger. They are just never coming home. What most people don't know is that the Nixon administration has prepared for this, not for a failed ascent engine specifically, but for the possibility that the mission might end with two men stranded on the moon. A speechwriter named William Safire has drafted a contingency address. Nixon reads it live on national TV while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin are still alive on the surface, listening through their headsets. It begins, "Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. Before the end, Mission Control makes a final call. NASA protocol requires that communication with the astronauts be cut. The world cannot listen to two men die in real time. The line has to go quiet. A NASA communicator speaks to them one last time. History does not record exactly what is said. The channel is closed. The moon goes silent. A failure of that magnitude does not just end a program. It ends a story a nation has been telling itself about who it is. America in 1969 is already fracturing. Vietnam, assassinations, protests in the streets. The moon landing in our timeline is a moment of unity in a country that has almost forgotten what that feels like. This timeline gets the opposite. Congress moves to ground the remaining Apollo missions within the month. The argument is simple and impossible to counter. If we cannot bring them home, we should not send them. The astronaut program does not end, but it turns inward. Lower orbits, safer missions. The horizon gets closer. An entire generation of engineers who aimed at the stars recalibrate their ambitions. The question of whether humans belong in space, a question our timeline never really had to answer, becomes the defining argument of the 1970s. The photographs Armstrong and Aldrin took on the surface are developed and published. The flag they planted remains standing. The equipment they left behind, the seismometers, the reflectors, the descent stage of the Eagle, stays exactly where they placed it. Two men walked on the moon, and the moon kept them. For years afterward, on clear nights, amateur astronomers point their telescopes at the Sea of Tranquility, not looking for anything in particular, just looking. The Soviet Union lands a cosmonaut on the moon in 1973. There is no ticker tape parade, No live broadcast watched by 600 million people. No moment of collective wonder. They have won a race whose finish line is a grave. Nobody celebrates. The past, you know, is only one of them.